14 floors up in a building on West 42nd Street in Manhattan in March of 1972, a man in a brown corduroy jacket stepped into an elevator and turned to face the door. That was the whole act. He didn't deliberate. He didn't choose. He just turned. 3 other people were already inside, but they were facing the back wall. The wrong wall. The man glanced at them, turned to face the door anyway. Then, slowly, in the way the body solves a problem the conscious mind hasn't named yet, he pivoted. He faced the back wall too. He rode 11 floors like that, facing the wrong direction, looking at nothing, and stepped off at his floor as though nothing unusual had happened. He was not a Confederate. He was just a person. And he had been filmed, proving one of the stranger findings in 20th century social psychology, that the pressure to conform to a spatial ritual is powerful enough that most people will abandon the physically logical, the obviously sensible, rather than break it. The psychologist who designed the experiment was Stanley Milgram, the same researcher who'd spent the previous decade watching people administer what they believed were fatal electric shocks to strangers, because a man in a white lab coat told them to. By 1972, Milgram had become a specialist in the things humans do without meaning to. He called this one, with characteristic understatement, his elevator study. The finding? Roughly 70% of people who stepped into an elevator where Confederates faced the wrong wall would eventually conform, some within seconds, some after a visible internal negotiation, some with no hesitation at all. The study gets remembered as a footnote on conformity, a charming illustration of peer pressure. That reading misses what Milgram actually found, which is stranger and considerably more useful. The man in the brown jacket didn't turn because he was weak-willed. He turned because the elevator ritual, face the door, take your corner, don't stare, is not an arbitrary convention. It is load-bearing infrastructure. And somewhere below conscious thought, his body understood that. Here is what an elevator actually is, stripped of the name we've given it. A sealed metal room, roughly the size of a generous bathroom closet, in which complete strangers compress to within arm's reach of each other, stand motionless, and travel in silence. No other context in daily life produces this exact configuration. Not the subway, where you can shift toward the door. Not an office, where furniture and roles and the performance of busyness provide insulation. An elevator has none of that scaffolding. It is pure proximity, suspended. The geometry of the space is remarkable on its own. Studies of positioning find consistent patterns. The first occupant claims a corner. The second takes the diagonal opposite. Third and fourth fill the remaining corners. The fifth stands in the center. Each new arrival redistributes the group the way charged particles redistribute in a field. Maximum distance maintained. The arrangement self-correcting with every floor. No one announces this. No one was taught it. The body calculates it faster than thinking, and well below it. And then there are the walls themselves. Most elevator cars are paneled in polished steel, and that steel is nominally decorative. It is also, functionally, a periscope. The reflection in the elevator door lets you track everyone in the car without moving your head, which means the elaborate performance of not looking is considerably more sophisticated than it appears. You are not failing to see the strangers around you. You are watching them in the mirror, while collectively pretending you aren't. And they are doing the same to you. And the coordination of the performance is so precise, it reads as indifference. Under these conditions, forced compression, managed invisibility, the body's threat detection should be running at full volume. Ethologists have a term for the proximity at which closeness begins to register as aggression: flight distance. For most humans in most contexts, it falls between 18 inches and 4 feet, calibrated by the relationship. In a midtown elevator at 8:40 in the morning, you are inside the flight distance of 4 strangers simultaneously. Your cortisol should be spiking. Your jaw should be tight. And yet, no one panics. No one is aggressive. No one, ordinarily, is even visibly uncomfortable for more than a passing moment. Watch a child in an elevator sometime. They don't face the door. They face the other passengers, stare openly, sometimes wave. They haven't learned the agreement yet, so they don't know they're violating it. And their non-compliance doesn't read as threatening the way an adult's would, because we calibrate threat to intent, and a 3-year-old clearly has none. But the adult response is instructive. People smile at the child and then look away. The smile is genuine. The look away is work, because the child, by not performing the ritual, has collapsed it, forced eye contact, made the mutual invisibility pact briefly impossible. And the adults around them scramble to reassemble it, because without it, the compression becomes something they'd actually have to feel. The ritual is load-bearing. The wall is the reason no one panics. Irving Goffman, the Canadian sociologist who spent the 1950s and 1960s following strangers through Chicago and Edinburgh with notebooks and a nearly clinical patience for the unremarkable, had a phrase for the act that urban strangers perform when passing on a sidewalk: civil inattention. You look at someone just long enough to acknowledge their existence, a fraction of a second, the smallest possible registration of another human, and then you look away. Not rudely, deliberately. The glance says, "I see you are a person." The look away says, "I release you from my scrutiny." Goffman wrote in 1963 that civil inattention was the operating system of cities. Without it, the density of urban life would be psychologically intolerable. 10 million people in one metropolitan area is only sustainable because 10 million people have agreed, without a meeting or a document, to continuously and efficiently not pay attention to each other. The elevator takes that agreement and pressure tests it. The sidewalk gives you motion. You're past a stranger in 2 seconds. The elevator gives you neither distance nor movement. So the ritual escalates. Civil inattention alone isn't sufficient when someone is standing 18 inches behind you. So you don't just look away. You face the wall. You give them your back. And this is what the man in the brown corduroy jacket intuited without knowing he intuited it. Your back is not nothing. Your back is everything. When you face the door, you cannot see the person behind you. You know they're there. You can sense the warmth of another body, hear the small sounds of breath and shifting fabric, but you cannot see their hands, cannot read their expression, cannot monitor what they're doing. The cable above you is rated to hold 12 times the car's maximum load. Most riders know this abstractly and feel nothing about it. But the person behind you is different. You are trusting a consciousness, not a mechanism, and a consciousness could choose. You have, in the most literal possible sense, made yourself vulnerable. And you did it on purpose. Every time you step into an elevator and turn to face the door, you are performing an act of trust so automatic that it has never once announced itself to you as trust. You are believing, below language, faster than thought, that the stranger behind you will not harm you. Not because you've assessed them, not because they've been vetted, because the ritual requires it, and you have both agreed to the ritual. And that agreement is the thing we mean when we say civilization. Milgram's man in the brown jacket conformed to a ritual running in the wrong direction, in a specific elevator, on the specific March afternoon in 1972. He did it because the pull of the shared agreement outweighed the obvious logic of which wall to face. The particular wall was arbitrary. The sharedness of it was not. Think of what happens when someone in an elevator doesn't follow the ritual. Stands facing the car, holds eye contact, watches the other occupants without pretending not to. The discomfort this produces is not mild and social. It is immediate, physical, something that moves up from the gut before the mind has processed what's wrong. Because what that person has done is withdraw from the contract, refuse to be vulnerable. And that refusal communicates, louder than words, that they are not playing the same game, that the mutual trust has a deliberate hole in it. The fact that a violation feels like a small threat tells you precisely what the compliance was doing. If the ritual were only etiquette, breaking it would be merely awkward. It isn't merely awkward. It is briefly alarming in the bones, which means the ritual was always safety, was always faith, was always two strangers agreeing, in silence, to be temporarily helpless in each other's company, because that is the price of sharing a small room, a city block, a planet, with 8 billion others. Goffman died in November of 1982, 5 weeks before he was scheduled to deliver the presidential address to the American Sociological Association. He never gave it. What remained of his notes suggests it was going to be about exactly this: the weight carried by the smallest, most unconsidered social rituals. The vast structure of mutual life resting on turned backs and averted eyes, and the careful performance of not noticing. He never gave the speech, but in a few 100,000 elevators right now, people are making the argument he didn't get to finish. They are turning to face the door. They are showing strangers their backs. They are trusting people they will never know with the most exposed thing they have, doing it in seconds without naming it, and stepping back out into the city to do it again on the next floor and the next and the next.